Bobbin, real ones. Logan Murdock here, Roger Bell there, Howard Beck in the motherfucking cut. The ball, Cliff on the boards, Victoria on the video. Ben Cruz is here, so you know it's a big fucking deal. We also got Keith, I think, is in here, the resident Knicks fan from the social media team. So, like, we're locked in. And the reason why we're locked in is because, you know, we have a very special guest. So much so that Raja has been really he came on the call really excited. But before we get to Raja's excitement, let's drop the resume. You know this guy from Empire of the Sun, you know, from Happy Gilmore, the cable guy. There's something about Mary Meet the Parents, Dodgeball, Night at the Museum. I don't know if he's severed right now. You also know him as an occasional video vixen in SZA videos. Ben motherfucking Stiller is in the building. Ben, how are you doing, buddy?
I was hoping I'd get the motherfucking.
You got it.
You earned it, brother. You earned it, man.
Welcome to the club.
An alleged longtime listener of the podcast, Ben Stiller is in the building.
This is great. This is crazy. This is crazy because, you know, as you guys know, you're maybe my favorite podcast of all the podcasts in the world. I listen to you guys religiously. And it's always weird when you are all of a sudden part of something that you're, you know, a fan of and you don't want to mess it up, because I really love listening to it. So this will be the one episode I'll have trouble listening to because I'm on it. But I'm such a fan of you guys. And Raja, you know, it's great to meet you. Howard, we know each other. Logan, we've never actually met in person, but I feel like we kind of know each other because we've talked a bit and we've had some back and forth. Man.
It's like. Go ahead, Roger. Go ahead, Roger.
Ben, you can't mess anything up, right? Like, I mean, I can't speak for those two, but I just come on here and I'm shooting the shit. So, like, the level of fandom that I have is hard to explain over the pod. I would just say this: my wife, who rarely misses an opportunity to go get her hair and stuff done, was gonna miss that and was like really fighting me to sit right off camera over here today on the pod. I was like, that's a very rare thing. I was like, no, you know, we're not gonna do that. But
I'm so glad you didn't. That would have made me so nervous. As if I'm not nervous enough. But no, it's great. It's great to be with you guys.
Oh man, we're excited to have you, buddy. You know what? Let's get to the This is a basketball pod, but we're gonna get to the shits at some point. Let's just talk basketball for like 20 minutes, and then we'll get to like all the fucking nerdy ass Ben Stiller questions that we all have that we all have written down, and Raja has gotten himself ready for. Let's just start off with the obvious, man. Like, you and Cliff had a little bit of a back and forth, Ben, before the pod about what the Knicks are going to be. How are you feeling about this team? Like, I see your blue skies and your X's and all these things. There's always an internal optimism from you and your excitement level of this team. But we've seen what they have done with the record against good teams. How do you feel? Where are you at right now? Where's your optimism level? Are you scared to death or are you excited as hell?
Well, look, I'm always going to be the optimistic fan because I'm a true fan of the team. You know, I have this back and forth with my son a lot, he's 19, and so like a lot of his formative years were like with the really, really bad Knicks, you know? And so he just has this internal thing where he's always expecting it to go bad, you know? And I've been a Knicks fan for so long that to get to this point where there actually are possibilities, I have to look at the positive side of it, you know? But I'm a realist, you know? I know our record against the teams that we're going to be facing. But I love this team. And I think, look, last night, right? We had a kick-ass game against Sacramento. It was actually, I think the Jalen Brunson thing has to, you know, work in some way, in a positive way for the Knicks to figure out how to, you know, figure out their offense in some other way than just through him all the time. And it was exciting to see OG step up and, you know what I mean, to see like a team game happening because they have to do that. So yeah, I'm a little bit, yes. You know, do I have blind confidence? No, but I also love our team. I love the will to win. I love the chemistry, and it's going to be a tough run. And it always comes down to injuries, right, and to being healthy. And you know, we finally got Mitch back, and who knows what's going to happen with the JB thing? But you know, I'm realistically optimistic.
You were at that Lakers game though, right? The Lakers Knicks game when it happened. Did your
I
heart
sure
sink?
was.
And
Yeah.
then when that happened, what was your reaction when Jalen Brunson just went down and his ankle?
I just was watching Rick Brunson, who immediately looked to the crowd to find Jalen's mom, and I saw the look of concern on their face, and then I saw him go off, and I knew it was not good. It looks, look, the fact that we're talking about like 2 to 4 weeks is much better than it could have been, but it was really, it was awful. It was awful, as a Knicks fan, because the game was so exciting and the Knicks were actually doing something. And then there was a point in the fourth quarter when I knew they were like up by 5 or they were up by 10. And I was like, Lakers are either going to cut it to 5 or the Knicks are going to go up by another 5. And this is going to be the swing. And it was exactly the wrong way. And that's when it turned. I knew it was just, I never felt like they had the game fully, it's just one of those games. But then when he went out, it was just sort of like, it was the worst possible situation.
That was that 6-minute mark, I think, right around there where it was because they were doing such a good job. They felt like while it wasn't put away, like they were kind of controlling it. The game was the way they wanted it. I have a question for you as like the heyday of the Knick fan of kind of our generation-ish would have been those, Patrick Ewing type of teams. Were known for just physicality and being brutal and just, everything that a blue-collar team kind of represents. Does the Ben Stiller Knick fan, would you appreciate a team more that's kind of cut from that cloth, like more of like last year's team that underachieved ultimately maybe, or a team that's kind of more exciting offensively that gets up and down and scores? I only ask because I was on those Suns teams and Mike D'Antoni was always about, if you're not going to win the chip, let's be really exciting. So just curious.
Right. I mean, I loved those Knicks teams and the toughness. I think, obviously our team is more, it feels like last year, we had more defensive, identity, I guess. And, when we lost Isaiah, when we lost even Dante, just like his grit, it was like he was there for 1 year, but he was such a Knick. He just made such an impression. And that playoff shot, I was at the Garden when he hit that shot against the Sixers, and there was a toughness there. I love watching Cat play because I feel like I didn't know what was going to happen when this guy came. I really didn't know what his personality was, and just from the get-go, he's like, this is Cap's team. We're in. We're all in. He was like such a team player. I see him giving his all out there. Yeah, he and JB are not the strongest defensively, but they're just incredible. They have incredible grit and desire. And I think he sometimes doesn't get enough credit for that, Cat. And I see him like giving his all every game. So I love the identity of this team in terms of just, I feel like they really care. They're also like accessible guys who, like Josh Hart, like, he'll make a joke. Like last night he said, why was your defense better? JB wasn't there. Like they're able to joke with each other,
Yeah.
I love that. It just feels like they really like each other. This is a different team. This is their own team, and they are very offensively minded. But we did, it was a tough. I think Hartenstein was a tough loss last year.
Yeah.
How has that been, Ben? Just in the sense of like you guys went through, as you alluded to, there were some very lean years there for the Knicks, and like they're fun again, they're relevant again. You've said it, like there's so much to love about this team, and last year, like part of the fun of rooting for them, it seemed like, was like every time a guy goes down, doesn't matter, right? They just keep grinding on, and like they just finally just ran out of bodies and gas against the Pacers.
Yeah,
this team is similar but different. They might end up, I hate to say it, but the postseason may go very similarly to last year. To get that high, and then the expectations of the franchise, of you guys and the fan base, the city, is like, okay, now we got to take the next step. Now we got to go take down the Celtics. We're going to go get Mikal Bridges to add to OG Anunoby. We're going to have guys to answer Tatum and Brown, all this. But it's feeling like, partially Brunson out, partially just the way the season's gone, the defense not being as good. How are you calibrating, I guess, knowing
Yeah. How am I calibrating for like what the reality of this team is?
I guess yes, because as we know, reality bites sometimes. So it's really bad. I apologize.
Nice one. Well, I don't know if it's going to bite that bad. I feel like they you can't underestimate this team. I think you have to see where they're at when the playoffs start, and see how they are health wise. And yeah, it's going to be an uphill battle for sure. But I don't know. I just feel like they really, they all really want it. I think the depth in the bench is not what it was, but it's not as maybe consistent. But like if Campaign comes out and he starts hitting his threes, it's like there's nothing like that boost when he's doing that. It doesn't happen all the time. I think Mikhail, this again, I think hopefully a blessing in disguise with JB being out, because Mikhail is going to have to step up more. And I think him being more aggressive in OG. I love OG. I think he's just such a special player. So yeah, I mean, look, who knows what's going to happen is what I'm saying. But I think, I give us a chance.
Yeah. That's it's an interesting point. Like, not being a Knicks fan, I didn't really look at it through that lens, but like I make the case for a lot of teams, and the silver lining that could be that injury you're talking about, Ben. And if I'm being honest, like watching them play, that Laker game was I thought it kind of summed up kind of perfectly what they could be. Even though Cat wasn't playing great, they were defending. You were getting your usual contribution from a lot of other places, and you were able to kind of keep the game in your wheelhouse. And that only gets you kind of to a certain level. You tap out at your ability to beat better teams, and what they're going to need is other players in playoff runs to be able to kind of take some of the load offensively. And that's easier said than done when Jalen's there. Like, it's not a Jalen issue. He's just so good, and teams, we're all human beings. So we look at our best player, our alpha, and we say, hey man, we're going to play off of that. And minus that, sometimes it'll allow people to grow into spaces that could be really complementary, in playoff runs. So that's kind of interesting, because Mikhail can do that. Like, you've seen him do that on other teams. You just got to find the platform and kind of the space for him to figure it out with the Knicks.
Yeah, I mean, with Cat and OG and Mikhail, those guys can all score. Right? They're legitimate scorers. It's interesting. Like when Cat first came to the Knicks, I don't know, maybe I'm making this up, but I remember there's like a couple games when JB was out, I think, and Cat had a big game, and like they hadn't quite yet figured out, how to play together, and they're still, I think, figuring that out too. But he has the ability. I mean, look, that run he was earlier when he first came, that he was scoring like 40 points a game. I mean, he was having huge games. So like, it's not like we don't have that ability. It's just we have to figure it out, I think.
Ben, me and you have talked about this offline, but I want to bring this conversation onto the podcast and give flowers to Raja Bell, who I know is one of your favorite players that you have watched. You have been waxing poetic on this. I believe your quote was, "He should have been a Knick," right? Like he was a perfect Knick, right?
That is high praise.
Yeah, no doubt. Thank you.
With Raja being number one on the list, obviously, who are the guys that you're like, who's your all-time damn he should have been a Knick? What are the ones that should have been there, right? And we could talk. I have a other question after this that we could do. So let's break it up and let's break it up into like stars, and then like obviously Roger's number one on all of them. But let's break it up into stars, and then the role guys that should have been like, he should have been a Knick. What the fuck? Why didn't we get him?
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I always, first of all, do you guys ever talk about one of my favorite Knicks back in the day that nobody ever talks about, Mike Glenn? Do you remember Mike Glenn, the Stinger? Played on the Hawks.
Sorry.
Oh my God.
I'm only like 12. Bro.
I feel like Roger, you would have known. No, he played in the 80s. He was like he's a guy who played on the Knicks for a while. And then he played on the Hawks for a long time. And he had an amazing 3-point shot. And I feel like he would have done well on this Knicks team anyway. But I mean, I like someone like Charles Barkley. I don't know. Yeah. How did you what's your take on Barkley, Raja?
Oh no, Chuck would have been phenomenal in a Knicks uniform, style of play, like ability to just captivate an audience. I just think for the market in general and Madison Square, which is, I know we talk about it. You probably are a little bit immune to it because you're there all the time, but even NBA players that are playing on big stages, there's nothing like Madison Square Garden. I mean, there's just like a primetime MSG game. There's no energy like it. I mean, Staples, wherever else, it doesn't matter. So, yeah, Chuck would be one of those dudes. I I don't know. I don't want to hijack your segment. I'm going to think about mine because I there's some names that would have been great in Knick uniforms. He's at the top of the list. Man, see, like a guy. Give me a second to think about it. But yeah, I like Chuck there. I always wanted to play for the Knicks. I kind of got to it a little late in my career when I worked out for them, and it just didn't materialize. But my wife's from Long Island, so I got familial, like, they're all Knicks fans. And then when you touch that floor at MSG, even for warm-ups, and the music's pumping and you get to see the people coursing through there. I mean, you're going down in the elevator and that rickety thing, you think you're getting stuck in it, and you might see a rat running through that bad boy. Like there's nothing like it.
It's funny because most of the games I've ever seen in my life have been in Madison Square Garden. So it's like actually interesting and weird for me to go see a game. Like even like going to the crypto or whatever, that's what it's called now, the crypto, right?
Yeah. I hear that New York.
I refuse to call it.
I hear the
What's crypto now?
It's
Staples.
What is it?
The Staples Center is now crypto.com.
Oh, it's crypto. My bad.
Yeah, no, it's so weird. But I thought there was actually a really great energy there, that I didn't remember because I didn't go to a lot of Lakers games when I lived in LA for like 20 years. And so I was living in LA during that whole like late 90s Knicks run and all that. But I thought there was actually good energy there, but it's weird to actually go to different places. I saw them play at the Hawks in Atlanta, and there's nothing like that Garden energy. I think even like a regular season game, just if it's a good game, like it just goes crazy. But like the playoffs, forget it.
Yeah,
who would have been a good Knick? KG would have been a good Knick.
Ooh,
yeah,
he'd have been a good Knick. Yeah,
that's a good call.
I don't know. I'm just playing around.
Did you remember like the rumors of like Michael Jordan becoming a Knick, or like using the Knicks as leverage and being like, maybe? Or did you ever? Who was the guy? Did you talk yourself into Mike? I don't remember I was like 2 years old when he did that, but like
I don't remember that. I wasn't that aware of it.
Okay.
I remember seeing Michael Jordan play though. I mean, I saw Jordan play a few times. I saw Kobe play a few times, and you and Kobe. I mean, famously. Kobe.
It's my guy.
we only bring it up about once every 3 weeks on the pod.
No, it's all
good.
Yeah. It was only to be.
It was exciting to watch
by my MJ.
Yeah.
No, he was crazy. He was crazy. I've told you guys my MJ, right? Like where
the preseason story.
Oh God, Jesus! I had my grandma in the stands talking shit. Like I was just out there cooking. I had like 21. And I don't know. I just thought that was life with the old MJ. And we played him no more than 2 weeks later in Washington. And he had me on the bench by like 2 minutes into the first quarter with 3
Did he
fouls.
let you know about it too with the fouls? Or did he-
No. He didn't say anything to me. It was just an introduction into like, hey man, this is what we do in the preseason. Don't make the mistake of thinking that's exactly who I am, right? He turned it up to another level that I just had no answer for.
Yeah.
What is it? Are you thinking that though, as a player, when you're playing someone like that? Are you thinking like this is Michael Jordan, or are you thinking like I don't give a shit? I'm like I'm Raja Bell.
Yeah, that's a good question. And I was we had come off those finals, Ben. So like I was kind of feeling myself in a way that I hadn't been months prior, just coming out of the CBA. But at the end of the day, like MJ was on a different pedestal for me than just about everybody else. So there was a level of deference and just like, hey man, this is going to be bananas. But it's crazy because as soon as the ball goes in the air, that's all out the window. Like it was kind of the same with Kobe. I was a huge fan of Kobe. Like I'm a basketball fan first and foremost. But as soon as that thing goes in the air, you just kind of forget where you are and you just get into like survival mode.
Yeah, I was looking up your stats, Rod. You shot 46% from three in the playoffs career.
Yeah, I was blessed to play with some really good players, Ben. Look, so this is a bigger conversation. Is like we're taking it back to the Knicks we were talking about.
Yeah.
In the playoffs, if you play with good players and you're blessed to play with the Brunson and a Cat, you get shots, good looks at the basket because the game plan is to stop them.
But you have to knock them down.
Yeah, you got to knock them down. Knock them down.
Ben, we're so used to seeing Spike get into it with opponents, with everybody.
Yeah.
Have you had any of those kind of back and forths, or are you just kind of
Yes.
all right, there had
I'm
to be
like
one.
saying this already because I'm like so embarrassed. Like I lose myself sometimes in these games, and Spike is obviously Spike. So
Yeah.
Spike is the Michael Jordan of fans, right? He's like, I mean, I love like going to games and getting a high five from Spike, or like it's an exciting moment, that's like it's so much fun. And the way he is with the players, the way he is with the refs, he has the license to do that. I sometimes just lose myself in the like I just get too caught up, and it's really like crazy. Like I get so caught up in it at a game. It's one thing at home when you're like yelling at the TV or whatever, but when you're in a game, and it is the garden energy too. But sometimes I'll go like a little too far for sure.
What was the most
All right,
out of body
so when?
experience you had in that one? Yeah, like what was the one where you were like, "What the fuck did I just do?" Oh shit!
I don't know. I mean, I had a thing. I started yelling at Kelly Oubre in the player.
Oh yes, yes.
And like I'm saying stuff that I like. Why am I saying it? Like I shouldn't be saying this. Like like I'm dissing these guys who are like these guys I'm fans of. They're amazing, professional basketball players. But I'm so frustrated. And then I did like do a tweet where I said Kelly Oubre. But it was like in characters, like a dodgeball or something like that.
Oh, that's phenomenal.
And then at the next game, he came up to me and like before the ball was inbound, and he said like, "I'm an average Joe's. No way am I Purple Cobras." So
that's great.
He had a really good sense of humor about it. But like, I mean, definitely. Or sometimes like I will like yell at the refs, and then I'll see like on TV or something, like, or I'll see like a replay or something, or I'll see myself and I go like, you can't do that. Like you really have to hold it back because it's ridiculous. But it's so you get so into it. I'm trying to think of other. I mean, it's amazing to me how sometimes the players during the games, though, when you're sitting courtside, can joke around and can be so relaxed within the game.
Yeah.
I remember that also last season, like Nick Batum, like at one point was there, like it was like 15 seconds left in the game. It was like a crazy physical game. And he like turned to me and he says like, "This is crazy, man. It's like a 90s game or something here." And I was like, like you're in the game, you're talking. But I guess that's just like a way of dealing with, right? Just sort of like you're in your zone and it's part of the whole experience.
Yeah, that becomes like I was going to say when you were telling your stories, which are fantastic. Like I think most of us kind of enjoy that. Like we, like a little back and forth. We play basketball from the time you're whatever age, and like part of what makes the NBA special, along with the financials and the TV, and it is the fan. It's the environment. So as long as it's not like crossing the line, which some people will do inevitably, but the passionate fan that's going to give you a little back and forth, especially, if you guys can get to the point where it's just going to stay there within the arena. Like I always enjoyed it. I love getting back and forth with fans.
Yeah. Well, it definitely is like there's no experience like sitting, I think, in an NBA game. Like there's no other sports experience like that, right? Where you can be that close to the action. I think it's like for me like the most enjoyable thing, like the thing that I love more than anything is going to a Knicks game.
How serious though are you about doing that, right? Like, because you clearly have hella projects, but I see you at Knicks games, considering you have like 7 projects that you're working on, and in your courtside, like, what are you like Jack Nicholson with the shit where it's in your contract that like I need to make this game, like, well, like even during the Oscars, you over here tweeting about it, like, what is the obsession? The meaning, like, I have to be there. What do you do? What
it's just a natural thing of like as the last few years, like 5 years ago, 6-7 years ago, it probably wouldn't have been as much of a thing because you knew what the games were going to be. But now that every game it means something. I just started to make it part of my schedule. I just started to like literally like I put it in my calendar, like there's a Knicks game on this night, and then if not that I'm going to go to all the games, but I do watch every game, and I don't like if I schedule a dinner or something like that during a Knicks game, and I'll get mad because then I'll start to not enjoy the dinner because I feel like I should be watching the game, But then, going to the games whenever I have a chance to go to a game, I can't. If you're shooting something, you can't stop shooting, because you have like 200 people there that you can't just say like, oh, I mean, I think back in the day, Woody Allen used to do that, or whatever, stop shooting at like 5 o'clock. Or I think Spike, though, even when Spike's working, he's not there at the games. But if there's any way that you can work something around that, then I definitely will do it.
Are you watching it while you're shooting though? Like, are you watching, like, if you're doing Severance in a season, right? And there's a Knicks game going on. Are you like, do you got like one eye on, the Severance, and then you're like, you got the phone, like, yo, what's up there? They're in Portland tonight. I gotta see what the score is.
Quietly, yes, that is happening. There is an iPad on set for sure, and it's known. It's known amongst the crew, or whatever. People know, and it's everybody's okay with it.
How'd your Knicks fandom start? Like, was this were your anybody else in the family like into the NBA or basketball, or was it just you on your own? Like, where's the origin point? Like, specific player, specific team, specific season?
Yeah, well, I mean, it goes way back. It goes back to the 70s. It goes back to my dad, who didn't have season tickets, but had friends who had season tickets. There were these two guys, this guy named Freddie Klein and a guy named Stanislavski, who like owned the Carnegie Deli, and were sort of like classic New York Jewish Knick fan guys. You know what I mean? Like deli, go to the games, knew all the refs. They had 8th row behind the Knicks basket. And so sometimes we would go and sit there with them, and they would like yell at the refs. They knew all the refs by name, and they knew the players. They took me down to courtside. This was like maybe like when I was 8 years old, 1973. So, I remember being introduced to Phil Jackson and people like that. And then since then I just started going. As a teenager, I'd go, with my dad sometimes, or with my friends. And it just was part of, became a big Bernard King fan. In that era, and then it just always was a part of my life. So and then I definitely disconnected for a while when I lived in LA. Actually, in that time, those late 90s times, I was not as into it on a regular basis. And then when I moved back to New York in 2010, it was like one of the best things about moving back here was like I get to go to Knicks games, and started taking my son, who was little at the time, and obviously the 2010 till like whatever 2021 wasn't a great time.
who would I mean, we know the faces that are at a lot of the games and stuff, but is there anybody in your industry that like really knows hoop? Like, you sit and have a conversation, you're like, yeah, this guy, he's a hoop head, he really gets it.
Well, I mean, the guys who go to the games, the Knicks games, like Chris Rock, Chris is really into it. All those like sort of like, and I guess the guys you see it like Tracy Morgan's hilarious. I don't. Have you guys ever cross paths with him? No. I mean,
what the fuck is he doing?
Yeah, the Eddie Murphy's impression of him on the SNL was like amazing,
phenomenal.
I mean, there's guys who have been like longtime Knicks fans who've been there forever, who know, like Matthew Modine, people like that who are like serious, just years and years. John Turturro, who's on Severance, has 2 season tickets to the Knicks. He's been going forever. I mean, I'm trying to think of other like celeb people, but people in New York who are fans are really, they're really into it, and they take it very seriously. I mean, I think I've gotten more into it in the last like 5 years. I never used to listen to podcasts about it and stuff. And then I started listening to you guys and, some of the other ones, but sometimes the other one, like it's frustrating because like when you hear podcasts talk about the Knicks and they're not Knicks fans, it's really hard. I take it so personally.
Oh my God.
I can't imagine Knicks fans taking it personally when people in my industry say something critical about them. That's never happened to me in my 20 years in New York, Ben.
Wait, question. Ben, on that subject of fandoms though, do New Yorkers look at like Denzel Washington and is like, yo, man, you one of us. How the hell are you a Lakers fan? What the hell is going on? You're supposed to be from Money Earned in Mount Vernon, and you over here and Staples talk about go Lakers. Like, do you guys look at him like, what the hell?
No, I thought we were all family. He's allowed to do whatever he wants. He came to a Knicks game recently. He came with Spike to a Knicks game.
Okay.
Like a few weeks ago. Yeah. I mean, no, like I don't hold it. Like everybody has their, look, like Jalen Brunson's an Eagles fan, right? Or whatever. So, it's like you have your teams.
Okay.
So I'm not going to hold it against him.
Okay. Okay.
Ben, what's your own basketball resume aside from the scene in Along Came Polly?
Bro, I have that written down, Howard. Like that was I have that written down. I love that.
Oh,
That's one of the best basketball scenes ever.
The best. Still, by the way, still gross as fuck. I replayed it and I was like, oh my God. Like the slow-mo, the sound effects, it still hits. It still hits.
I still remember it. I remember it.
that wasn't like a stunt special effects thing. That was his actual chest, right?
That actor was cast purely for his hairy girth. And Phil Hoffman was he was so funny in that scene.
Incredible.
He was just amazing. My basketball resume is short. I like me. I went to a small private school on the Upper West Side called Calhoun, and there were maybe like 60 kids in our whole senior class maybe or something like that. But I tried out for the basketball team, and there were like maybe 16 kids who tried out for the basketball team, and like 12 got on, and I was one of the 4 that didn't make it of the 16 kids. But I would go play. I love to play though, and I'd play pickup games, and I'd go play at the Y on Sundays. My dad would take me, and so I always loved playing. But then my kids ended up going to the same high school I went to, and my son played on the 7th and 8th grade, or the 7th grade team, the 7th and 8th grade basketball team with Carmelo's son, Cayenne.
Oh wow!
So they played. Yeah, so they played on the same team together because he went there, and then that was before Cayenne. Now I saw him at a game a few weeks ago. He's like 6'7" or something. I don't know.
He's a big kid. Yeah,
but he was like 4 years ago or 5. He was he was not. And he was great. But anyway, and there's my son didn't keep playing basketball, but he did, and he had one game where he hit 4 3-pointers. And so that was his, and then he retired.
Okay, I shut it down.
he said, "Take that, Dad."
He left while he was on top.
Yeah, Cayenne's a bad boy. Like we played against him a lot when our kids were young, like in the little travel scene, and he was. Yeah. I mean, to your point, you wouldn't have thought. I mean, you knew Carmelo was his dad, so he was going to grow at some point. But at the time, you were like, "Oh, whatever."
Right.
And then he had a pretty big glow up over the last 4 or 5 years, man. He's tough.
Yeah, which is great. It was fun because Melo would come to all the games, and just as a dad, and there's nothing like that. I mean, I know, Roger, because your kids, there's nothing like watching your kid play, right? Because you just want it to go well. You just want it to go well so badly.
It's almost hard to watch.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Right.
No doubt. Yeah. Like that's the most anxiety I've ever had is sitting in the stands to watching one of my children play. Hands down.
It's just a thing with kids. You just want your kids to do well, and you can't. You have to let them go through their process.
No doubt.
All right, let's get to the
Logan,
shits, man.
As your little one grows.
I know. It's been a blast to just see that. I'm really living vicarious. I'm getting pointers from Raja. He doesn't know this, but I'm like how Steve Kerr was with Brad Stevens, and secretly taking notes and side out of bounds plays from Raja's philosophies on being a dad and stuff. Just like, oh, he did that. Okay, I'm gonna figure that out. Yeah, I can't wait. He's so young now, so he just barely doesn't even crawl yet. So I'm just
love him, bro.
Just loving him right now. He's big as hell, but that's all I can do.
It's such a cliche, but that period of time goes by so quickly, right?
I know, even so fast right now. It's crazy. We're just taking him to the hospital. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. Still don't, but it's crazy to even get to this point to where you're so delusional out of the hospital, and now you're just okay. We have a bit of a routine now, and you're sleeping. It's pretty cool.
No, it is crazy. I think that thing of when you leave the hospital with your kid, all of a sudden you're on your own. You're just okay.
They don't give you they're just yo, bye.
Yeah.
See ya.
Where's the user manual? Where's the
There's nothing.
You'll be okay.
Instructions.
Because in the hospital, everything is so controlled, and they're feeding, they're doing this and that, and then all of a sudden it's like, all right, just go.
No, it's crazy. It's so jarring.
For me, honest to God, for me, I think that was the moment in my life. I've been with my wife for a long time, but that was when I realized like she was in charge, because I wasn't going to be leaving there. I didn't know what the fuck to do. The whole ride home, we were like,
you're like hyperventilating, just
yeah, really,
so calm.
But when we got home, she was like, she went right into like, all right, I need you to do this, I need you to do that, and we're gonna do that. And I was like,
and we're like, yeah, okay, sounds like a plan.
Yeah, you got it.
only decision that I had was that I played too short on the way home. Just, get them right. Get them some isms. You know what I'm saying? Just like get them some little ism on the way home. That was my contribution to the cause. All right, let's get to the shits, man. Enough Knicks talk. Let's just let's get a little loopy here. Let's talk about Ben's career. But first off, I want to ask Severance, which we all watch. And the question that I have for you is, obviously you guys are awash with fan theories. I know because I'm on Reddit and I subscribe to those conspiracy theories and I see them and I go up and down. What is the best and worst fan theory that you love, and how much of them, which one has a symbol of truth to it that you're like, oh, this is actually true, they're on to something?
Well, it's hard because there's so many different ideas that people have, and obviously I don't want to tell people what's right or wrong, you know what I mean, because then it'll take the fun out of watching it, right?
No, it won't. No, we still love those camera scenes of just water for 30 seconds. It'll be fine. You can give it up a little bit.
Logan's suddenly a cinematography critic here.
I'm locked in. Ben, no.
You know what? I have to say that for me is a little bit, and I'm like guilty of this, but like for so many years making comedies as a director, you have to like put it in front of an audience, and they have to, you test it, right, to see where they're laughing, where they're not laughing. Back in the day, like they still do it, but like scorecards, like what would you rate the movie? Good, excellent, whatever. And studio movies go through that whole thing. And then when I started working not in comedy as much, it was really freeing to not have to do that, to not have to, make sure something paced up and was like, a laugh every 30 seconds or whatever. And you could just do shots of water and things like that. So it's kind of like me rebelling.
Shots of mountain ranges.
It's one episode. But I mean, I think some people have gotten close. It's for us. Yeah. For us to ultimately, like, I want the show to work. And I know Dan Erickson, who created it, and everybody who works on it wants to work on an emotional level, like the characters and like the relationships of the characters, I feel like are the most important thing. And then all the questions about like what the numbers mean and what's Lumen up to. And is there, there's like, I know that I've seen some like AI theories and things like that, which I don't want to say they're not right, but they're not, it's not AI.
Okay.
On the official pod,
they're not dead. They're not dead.
It's like with Lost, which you haven't seen. Incredibly, I can't believe you said this on your podcast with Adam Scott the other day. You've never seen Lost, one of my favorite shows.
I know. I'm not like, I haven't watched like a lot of television over the year. I mean, I've watched some things and I've loved, but like I never watched Lost, and I know it was great. It's just like there's a lot of episodes and a lot of seasons, and we do get compared to it a lot. So it's kind of, I feel good that I haven't watched it really.
Well, and Dan, who you mentioned, the writer, Erickson.
Yeah, Dan Erickson. Yeah,
I think he's noted, right? Like he was a huge Lost fan and has actually, like, there are some allusions in Severance to Lost. Like he slipped in a few things, which I think our friends on the Prestige TV pod have picked up on.
Oh, really? Yeah. I don't know. I mean, it's just like the amount of, of analysis and in that way, like, I feel like we all bring what we bring to it. And sometimes we talk about this stuff and sometimes we don't. But that's what's been fun about working on the show with Dan, is like he comes from, he's younger than I am. He has a different generation. He comes from a different place. He has watched different stuff. I have my sort of, library of things that are in my head, and it's been fun to just come together with him and just sort of like what we've made together, I think, is something that we wouldn't have done if we, weren't working with each other. So that's been fun, Yeah,
that's interesting. I'm always fascinated. I hear, I listen to a couple pods and I hear a lot of people talk about that comedy versus more like drama genre, especially coming from a comedic background, probably, and that always fascinates me, right? Because I didn't realize how demanding it is trying to get the laugh, if you will. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, I never really kind of put that. I didn't put two and two together with that, but I would.
I mean,
I don't
honestly, yeah, Raj,
yeah.
I would say it's like literally, it's such a simple thing. It's like somebody comes to a basketball game, they want the player to put the ball in the basket. It's like you go to a comedy, you want to laugh, and it's like a very binary thing. And that's the tough thing is like if you're not performing, if you're not getting right, if you're not making people laugh, then then they're not happy. So when you say something's a comedy, that's what's to me. By the way, that's great because I love comedies, and you got to deliver. And that's why I think it's a higher bar in a way to do comedy because drama you can do shots of mountains or whatever things. I'm going to creatively express myself. No, but which is subjective. But laughing is kind of like either you're laughing or you're not laughing. But then, right? And then, but different people laugh at different things. So figuring out what's going to make other people laugh can be challenging.
Yeah, no, I just find that so fascinating. It's absolutely right. I just find it just blew me away. I mean, I don't really have a question because I'm just such a fan. But like, I mean, along came Polly. I don't know, Logan. You were too young for like when that came out in the movie theaters. I swear to God, on everything I love, I've never laughed as hard in a movie theater again in my life. Like it was the wildest thing. And the cool part, did you guys film that in Miami, right?
Polly, no,
I'm sorry, something about Mary. I apologize.
Something about Mary was all was South Beach, Miami. Yeah, it was great.
Yeah,
So
you guys used weird little thing. You guys the driving range that you guys were using in that movie was correct me if I'm wrong. You might not remember, but it looked like the one in Hollywood, Florida. It's one that my dad and I used to go to. You were hitting out into like a little lake out there. It was the craziest thing.
Sure, I'd never really worked there before. We had the best time, and also because the Farrelly brothers who directed that movie just were like they had no rules about how they did anything, so they just would do stuff to make people laugh, and they were doing practical jokes on the set that now you would get thrown in jail for.
Yeah.
Wait, Ben, I just want to say, first of all, fuck you, Raja, because something about Mary was the first Ben Stiller movie that I actually watched, like ever.
Oh, I just thought you were too young. My bad.
I mean, I was sick.
He probably was.
I was, but I was still watching that shit. So
I got you.
That leads to my question, which I had on this on my doc. What was it like filming the scene where your character zips up his "You Feel Me" in the bathroom and tell me about that day.
And beans?
Tell me about that day. What was that day like? Please tell me about the day when
I cannot believe you asked.
Yes.
Well, that day was okay. I mean, it was like I felt like we were doing like a Marx Brothers movie or something. It was just so over the top. There's like this set.
We got a bleeder.
Yeah, and it was just like a guy walks by the window. It was like a vaudeville routine or something. And I thought, okay, this is just like so over the top. And then we kept on. They had this giant like prop of my pants with the zipper, with the Franks and the beans and the zipper. Like this big like oversized prop because sometimes they make them oversized so they get the camera in. And I was looking at it and I said to the director, like, there's no way. You're never going to shoot that thing. That's like disgusting. That's ridiculous. There's no way you can. And he's like, yeah, we probably won't use it. We're not going to use it. I don't think we're going to use it. And then, of course, then they see the movie. And the reason why it's so funny, I think, is because they wait so long to cut. Like the scene goes on and on and on. And then very late in the scene, they cut to that close up. So it was, the more lonely day of shooting was the scene where, I have to go in the bathroom and, before the date with Mary and, try to, what I'm talking about.
That was that. I mean, that might have been the single. That shot is the laugh I'm talking about.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
That's the shot, right? Like when I was like, I think I jumped over a railing or something. It was the wildest.
Bro, I laughed so hard. And
I was just obsessed with, you're talking about this stuff on my ear, right?
No.
Yeah.
No. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the zipper scene where and every man related to it instantly,
right?
No matter how that. I'm talking about that scene.
Well, the ear scene where she comes over for the date.
That one.
That's the one I'm talking.
Yeah.
Okay.
That one I was obsessed with, like why I wouldn't be able to feel it on my ear. That was I had long discussions with the director. Like, did my character have an accident when I was young and like I lost all sensitivity on my earlobes? Like, what do we need to set up the fact that like at some point I lost, like I injured my ear so that I feel stuff? Because I couldn't understand. He was like, it doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter.
Even though like the physics of how did it get there? But like you don't want to think about it. At a certain point, you just don't even want to think about it. So I'm sorry Raja even brought this up.
Oh my God, that's great.
All right, your kids are now, I think, both in their 20s, right? They're slightly older than mine, right? We established.
My son's almost 20. Yeah, my daughter's going to be 23. Yeah.
At what point did they see some of these scenes or some of your movies or the ones where you cringed as they're growing up? There's like, Night at the Museum, whatever, fine. But like there's certain stuff where you probably had to wait. And I'm curious how much they were interested in all this in the first place, but also like when did they finally see scenes that Raja has described?
That one, I don't think I still don't think my kids have seen that one. There's something about Mary. At least they haven't told me about it. And I'm not like running to like, hey, let's screen this thing together. You know what I mean? I went to the premiere with my parents. I remember my parents were at the premiere, and I remember sitting at the premiere with my parents thinking, oh my God, like this is, I didn't think about this. And so that was, and they were like behind me, and I was like, and I remember just watching it, like not wanting to turn around. Yeah, my kids, it's weird. Like they're so aware of all this stuff, obviously, but it's kind of like there's certain movies that we have, watched together. I think my daughter saw Tropic Thunder for the first time like a couple years ago, and that was, it was fun. It's fun for like, if they come to something, they want to see it, but you don't want to like be trying to like say, hey, check out this or check that out. And like with something about Mary, I'm just like, at some point they'll experience it maybe, or maybe they won't, which would be okay too.
You talked about your parents just a little bit there. I'm sorry. How cool was it? I mean, how often did you work with your dad? I remember one specifically, Zoolander. Like, how cool was that?
Yeah. I mean, I grew up, my parents were actors. I grew up around, they were a comedy team. I actually have just been working on this documentary about them that's about to come out. And awesome. So like my whole life was just being around their world in New York, show business, and that period of time. And they, it was fun to work with them when I started to do movies. I'm glad I was able to do it. Sometimes it's complicated when you have, relationships with parents who are like, we're both in the same business. And my dad was doing Seinfeld and kind of had this sort of like new chapter of his career when I was doing movies. So that was really great because, I think he was a really funny guy. My mom was really funny, but also like very sort of interested, I think, in more like where I go, like more serious stuff also, and wrote and read a lot. And, anytime I could work with them, it was really fun, but it was also, they were helping me a lot when I was growing up. I mean, you talk about like Nepo babies and all that. Like I can imagine a world where like not being like, I wouldn't probably have gone into what I do if I wasn't around it all the time and saw it and wanted to be a part of it. I did love movies as a kid. My parents were doing nightclub, stand-up comedy. And I thought, okay, well, I want to be in movies. But then when I started to try to do my own stuff, I would, say, hey, Dad, could you be in this, this tape I'm doing? Or my mom, like they were really supportive. And it was just part of our lives. And that's kind of part of what the movie's about that I've been working on, is that just sort of like, it wasn't like sort of like, hey, I'm going to help you out. It was just sort of like, this is the world that we live in. And I imagine it like, if, like with your kids, if, in sports, like you're going to try to like impart what to them and help them, right, in whatever way, and they have to figure it out themselves. And like, obviously it's a greater question you could, talk about. But for me, working with my parents or them being a part of what I did was like a really natural thing. And I was really grateful that we had that, that experience, those experiences together.
Yeah, that's very cool. My dad, not that anyone asked, but I'll just share it. Like my dad was a a college wide receiver. He didn't get to play in the pros, and so he became a PE coach, and then he was an assistant athletic director at Miami. But his world was sports. He played every sport. I went to every field, and although it wasn't on the professional level, you just described it, right? Like I was there. I was loving what he was loving. I was watching his love for it and loving it and developing my own love, right? And that's our family business to some degree. So like our kids, even though you don't push them there, like they just see what you love, right? And they're like, well, that's pretty cool. And they could love it if they want.
Yeah, they make that choice for themselves that they want to do it. I know I made that choice for myself. I saw, and my kids, my daughter is out there, starting work as an actor and went to drama school, but she just like made a choice at a certain point that she wants to do that. And same thing with my son. And I want to be supportive of that, but I think it's also like, yeah, growing up around it. If you see something that you're drawn to, I think that's a good thing. Sometimes the flip side is like you're not around as much, when you're working and you're so focused on that, but also I think your kids experience that, because I saw that with my parents, that they were so focused on their work, but they also, they loved us and everything, but that was sort of like what they were modeling, was that commitment to the work too.
I'm looking right now, like speaking of, I guess I wouldn't say father figures, but someone that played your father in a movie. I'm thinking about Robert De Niro and how much of a method actor he can be, and I'm wondering, like, what was it like to be alongside that, and what is your best story from him and just working alongside him?
I mean, I was lucky in Meet the Parents because De Niro, was so intimidating as a presence, and my character had to be intimidated by him. So it wasn't really like I had to do that much. And he was really nice, but I think he also understood that dynamic was there. So he was always sort of, I think, like kind of like whenever he could like lean into like sort of allowing me to be intimidated, he would. He's the sweet. We've become friends over the years. Which is just surreal to me because he's one of my favorite actors. But he, he has an intensity about him. I mean, even now, I saw him recently at the SNL 50th thing, and he gets really, he's really upset by what's going on with Trump and the country and everything. Like when he gets intense and like it's like you're like literally in a scene from Goodfellas, you know what I mean? Like it's real, it's very real, and that's what I think is so fascinating about him as an actor, is that he has both that super scary intensity, and he's also incredibly sweet and kind too. And so that flip side. But I do remember once we were in the car doing a scene, like where we're driving together, and then he was like, they'd stop, we shoot the scene, and then they cut the camera, and then we had to drive the camera back around, the car back around to where we started the scene. So we'd just be sitting in the car together, and it was supposed to be, awkward and uncomfortable in the scene. And then it was like probably more awkward and uncomfortable on the drive back to the beginning of the scene. And then he started telling me about like a real estate person that he felt that I guess something had happened, and he started getting upset with this person who had like done something wrong. And I heard him like go, and I was like, oh my God, this is like the intense De Niro, right, thing. And it was just like, wow, that's like, and then he was like, yeah, but whatever. And so I don't know, there's nothing like when you're with somebody who's like one of your acting idols, and they're just sort of like, being who they are. And for me, it was kind of cool because I felt like he was kind of like opening up to me a little bit, and like we were actually like talking like two people. I don't know. It was pretty cool.
Were you like, oh shit, that's Robert De Niro being Robert De Niro as
Yeah,
Robert
exactly. It's
like
like that's where it comes. Like
this is my life.
Yes, exactly. And but like it was just sort of like, but in like a real way where it's like, oh, this is how he channels this into being those characters on screen.
Can you still get starstruck at this stage? Like, is there anybody you walk in a room with and go like, holy fuck, I'm in a room with fill in the blank?
I mean, I get starstruck by athletes for sure, right? I mean, there's something about, the athletes who you look up to. I don't know how you guys feel about it, because you are an athlete, Raja, but Howard, you write about, I don't know, like what, Logan, what do you like, how do you guys look at it? I'm curious, because for me, that's musicians and athletes, right? People who create music that like affects you on this deep emotional level, like someone like Elton John or something like that for me, or you know, like I haven't met Kendrick Lamar. I'm huge. We were talking about Kendrick Lamar the other day.
Yeah.
Like I'm a huge fan of his. I would be starstruck meeting him, you know?
I think it's honestly, man, at least for me, I can speak for, I don't want to speak for Howard, but I think it's just more of a suppression than anything, right? Like because we see these people in a place where we have to do a job. You know what I mean? So like we have to focus on a job and a certain thing. So like for me, at least when I see someone that I've always admired and I've seen a lot of people, you usually don't like notice it till you get home and you're like, what the fuck was tonight? That was crazy. Right. But in the moment you're like, oh shit, that's such and such for sure. Right. But like, I have to get something done. You know what I mean? And I think it's more suppression than anything. Right. Like I've had the opportunity to like cover Steph on a regular basis for the last like 7 years. Right. And he's like this global star. I remember there was this one time where I was, I think I was walking out with either Steph or KD, like walking out into to the court, and there was this jarring reminder of who these people actually are, right? Because you're with them on a day to day. I'm sure Raj and Howard have dealt with this, where you're walking with a person, and then you start hearing like loud like screams and stuff, and you're like, "What the hell is that?" Because like your human instinct is something going wrong? And then you're like, oh no, I'm just with like Michael Jackson right now. Like I'm just standing next to that type of figure. Right. And that part is jarring. But for the most part, when you're around these people, at least I'm suppressing it because you have a job to do. And then you look back and you're like, damn, I was in this place at this time during this moment. So it's a little different as someone that covers a league. What do you think, Howard?
I've gotten kind of numb to it, to be honest. It's not even suppressing it anymore. Like there's very few athletes who could walk.
He's
into
also
a room,
Howard
even in other
motherfucking
sports.
Beck, so like there's that. You know what I mean?
No, I'm
You know
just
what I mean?
like, dude. When you start your career covering the NBA, covering Shaq and Kobe, like everything after that feels like, honestly, it kind of just numbs you out to everything else. And so whether it's LeBron or Steph or whoever else, it's not that I'm not impressed with like how incredible they are. It's just the celebrity factor does not come into play for me anymore. There are some exceptions. I never did get to meet, and I wish I had. I never got to meet the great Bill Russell, and I was in a room with him a few times, like at the NBA Finals and other events. But like he's such a presence that there was it's not even like intimidating. It's more just like this is royalty, man. Like this is, and so I did not want to impose on him in any way by walking up to say, hi, Mr. Russell, Howard Beck from wherever I was working at the time. I just never did it, and I wish I had, but he's one of those ones, he just has this presence, this aura about him. But aside from him, like, listen, man, you guys know, like I grew up on the 80s Niners. If I walk into a room and Joe Montana's in there, I will probably turn back into a 15-year-old and be like all weird and like goofy.
I really want to see that because Howard be over here like, I don't care. I'm not fuck all these athletes. I ain't tripping off of them. I really want to see him kind of like, Raj, don't you kind of want to see a fanboy out just a little bit, bro? Just
I'd like to see Howard get uncomfortable.
But I have the inverse of what Ben just described, which is Ben, like you're saying, like it's the athletes you still kind of have on that pedestal. It's not athletes for me. It is actors, musicians, other people whose work, like, again, I'm wearing my REM shirt today, but if I walk in a room and Michael Stipe is there, I am not going to be able to even function or speak coherently. I would love to meet Stipe, but like, I'd embarrass myself. So that's where it still hits for me. And with athletes, it's just like, whatever. I've seen these guys before.
Yeah. I'm kind of like that with basketball, with male athletes, I'm fine. I would be a fan like female athletes, Megan Rapinoe. I've like
friend of the show.
Yeah, no doubt. But you joke with me all the time. Like I would fan out. Like obviously Ben and actors and actresses, like not even a question. But you know, football players, basketball players. I guess it is what you have access to, right? Because I've had a lot of access to football and basketball. Like I'd fan out over like, you know, I got a chance with Steve Nash to meet a lot of world-class soccer players, you know, just kind of tagging along, being his friend at different stuff. And those dudes get me freaked out a little bit. But yeah, basketball, football and stuff like that, I'm good. But this would be, Ben, I'm sorry. Like, I don't know. This was a big one for me, man. Like this was.
We're not done yet, Raja. We're not done.
No, I know. I'm just reiterating this. This was a big deal.
No,
but
real quick.
That is an interesting
funny part
thing.
though. Real quick.
But it's an interesting thing though to me, because I guess what's interesting to me when I meet an athlete that I'm a fan of is just, or it's like the insight to how you do what you do, because I guess as journalists, you guys, you have to come at it from a certain place. I always come at it as a fan from, and maybe this is also my dad, because my dad was like a super generous, sweet, loving, funny guy. And he grew up super poor during the Depression. And I don't think he ever got over the fact that like he had like was able to like, just live in a nice place and never worry about having food. And, he really had that deep in him. And he loved going to basketball. We go to the Knicks games. He loved going to games, but he was never a guy that was going to get down on players, or like yell things at players. And I think I kind of come from the same place as him, which is like, because it's not my job to talk about them or to analyze them. Like just the fact that these guys are here at this level, like we take it for granted. Anytime you see one of those celebrity games on the All-Star game, whatever, like you are like so quickly reminded of how like what normal people look like playing basketball, right? You know what I mean? Like what people who are even guys at like a pickup game in a gym. That's why I think Jokic is so fascinating, because he doesn't look like this guy who's like the best, right? One of the best ever. He just looks like a guy at the Y who like would be annoying at the Y and getting all the basket, but like he's doing it with the best in the world. And when you see normal people play basketball, you go, oh yeah, this is like, it's so like we get so used to that. I appreciate that so much. I guess I just appreciate at that level that it's hard for me to like go after guys. Like personally, I can get frustrated, but I also feel like I'm just fascinated with how you do it, how you're able to lock in, and like what it takes to be where you're at. And I guess that's more just like my sort of like as a fan of other people, musicians or athletes, it's like I'm just, it's not what I do. So I'm really curious about how they're able to do it. And when it comes down to it, a lot of it is just natural ability, and then it's mindset. And it seems to me that to be able to be a clutch player, to be able to shoot a free throw in front of 10,000 people, that's like yes, it comes from repetition. And, everybody I've ever talked to is like, we've been doing this since we were little, but not everybody can still do it at that level.
Yeah, no, you know what's interesting? It's about that. I mean, it's just I'm the absolute opposite of that, right? Like in terms of viewing what you guys do. Like I, took a drama class. My drama was like in college was like, hey, you're pretty good at that. Like, like I never thought I was going to be an actor, but there was one moment like out of the Suns where, I had an agent and they brought me a script and they were like, hey, do you want to try to do this? And I'm like, yeah, man, what the fuck? Like, let's do it. And as soon as I had to read in front of like a camera, like, oh, I can't do this. There's not even a chance. Like, not even a chance. Like, there's nothing in me that could pull this off. And so, like, it's just the reverse of that, right? Just fascinated by, this is what I do. It's natural. Like, we train to do it. Like, there is an element of like, you could train as much as you want and you still might not be able to do it. But for the most part, you've got this natural ability, and then you've sharpened your tools to a point where you could pull some of this off. But it's the same thing for you guys, right? Like it's the same exact thing. Like not everyone can turn on a camera and talk into it and look natural doing that. Whether you sharpened your tools or not, there's just no natural to it.
Yeah. I mean, it takes time and like getting used to it. I definitely wasn't great when I started, and I would get nervous and auditioning. I was not really good at auditioning, and even like when I think over the years I felt more and more comfortable in front of the camera. But even still, it's like hard when you jump in on something, like if you're doing a part where it's just like one thing and you're just coming in for a day. It's much harder than if you're starring in a movie and you've had the lead up and you had rehearsal and you then kind of start working and you have the first day or two where you're kind of getting the kinks out, and then it just becomes sort of like, just run of the mill because you're used to it.
Yeah, that's dude, I'm sorry. Like, you guys cut me off if you want, but that's so fascinating because like with an NBA player, right? Like let's say a good one that is drafted into an organization, there's a level of stability, there's a level of opportunity that you're going to get to make the mistakes, to kind of work your way through it. There's investment from the club. And so there's this safe space where you can kind of develop. And weirdly, like we had auditions. Like I had to audition to get in the NBA. So like you'd go somewhere for a day and you'd go there with 30 other dudes and they'd throw a ball out and they you knew you were only getting one person out of that getting called back. Right. And so like those were terrifying. Like the first couple of times you do that, like you just have to go to a place where you just got to find this little crevice of your brain where you're like, yo, I cannot think about what's at stake here. Because if I do, I won't make a shot all day, right? So you just get in fight or flight mode as quick as you can, and you just try to take it back to basic instinct. But it's very similar to the audition process, I have to imagine, where you're like, hey man, good luck with this. You got about 30 minutes to show us you're good enough.
I mean, yeah, and you weren't drafted, right?
Yeah, I wasn't drafted. No, this was
So
like free
that's
agency stuff.
That's like a whole other thing too. Yeah. I mean, that's where it is your instinct. You're young. I mean, I also think it's when you're young and you don't know any better and you're just thinking, this is what I want to do. That's what I was going off of, right? I wasn't even thinking about it. I was just like, well, I wasn't even thinking that it's not going to work out or what's my plan B. I was just like, no, I just want to try to do this and I'm just going to go forward.
Ben, I'm curious about actually this brings up something I've been wondering about just in shifting to directing. Like acting just looks like, and I know from the outside everything looks very different. My job always seems glamorous to people in ways that I try to explain is not, and then I've given up trying to explain why it's actually very.
A lot of lonely nights by yourself with the computer talking shit to you that you can't do something. That's basically
Exactly.
what it is.
But acting just looks like so much fun, and especially the kinds of movies that you've done in your career, like all these comedies and just like everything's just like just joyous. And directing, this is where I'm like talking out of my ass because I don't know shit about how this all works, but that seems like the work part of it, and the acting seems like the fun part. And I know I'm ridiculously oversimplifying, but what do you find fulfilling or enjoyable in a different way about directing versus acting? Like I know you're not done with that, but this is Escape, Dannemora and Severance, and like this period of your career is really defined by the directing, it seems like. So is it a different level of enjoyment and satisfaction than being an actor and comedian all those years?
Yeah, for me, since I was 10 years old, I wanted to be a director. Since I was like had a Super 8 camera and went to see, Poseidon Adventure or Planet of the Apes or whatever it was. Like these were the movies. I was like, I want to do that. I want to make movies. And then it sort of morphed into acting and directing. And when I was a teenager, and anyway, I've always loved directing. I always read articles about directors and the book of The Making of Jaws when it came out. I was just fascinated with behind the scenes. I had, subscription to American Cinematographer as a kid, and I was just fascinated with the technical aspect of it all. And, it's a full experience when you're directing something because, you're taking it from the beginning all the way through to the end. And through editing, music, all of it. And when you're acting, you just go in there and you do have, if it's a comedy, yeah, you want to have fun. You want to try to find the life in it. And, whatever the situation is, all of that is great. And working with great directors is really exciting as an actor too. But for me, to be behind the camera, working with great actors, working with a great crew, and coming up with what this thing is going to be, and then putting it together sort of brick by brick, which, it takes a long time, and figuring that out and kind of trying to figure out how to make something that you really feel connected to and feels like an expression of something you want to see. That to me is like the best experience. And I love going to work every day when I'm doing that because I'm grateful I'm not an actor those days usually, because the actors have to, all of a sudden the camera's right in front of your face and, you got to do an emotional scene, or you have to be scared, or you have to, whatever it is. And that's so hard to do. And I have so much more of an appreciation for actors now that I've been spending more time directing and not acting. And I think it's like one of the best things you can do creatively. And I feel really lucky that I get to do it, honestly.
Cliff, our guy Cliff, resident Sixers fan, told me he has a question for you. And then we might do a couple mailbag questions for you and get you out of here. Cliff, what's
Sixers
up, man?
I feel, Come on. Not your
Let's go.
And thank you, Cliff.
No, Cliff is still mad that you guys keep fucking infiltrating Wells Fargo Center. What the fuck? I mean,
Yeah,
that's
like,
more of
first of
a
all,
Philly
listen.
problem than anything. But yeah, we're here.
Exactly. And Ben, I'm sorry to let you know, but the Pistons will probably knock y'all out in the first round of the playoffs.
Yeah.
Cade,
Go.
Jalen Duren, Isaiah Stewart, they coming. They coming.
No, definitely. They definitely have some momentum for sure.
But question here. Dodgeball came out over 20 years ago, right? And it's such like a cultural phenomenon.
You're fucking up. Roz is hell bad. He didn't ask. Go ahead.
Yeah. It's such a cultural phenomenon, and you can recite a million lines from the movie. And I wanted to know, like, after you guys were done, shooting every scene, recording whatever, editing, all that, the whole process, right? Did you know that was going to be that? Like, do actors know that, all right, we got one. Like, this is definitely going to be like the film that, takes us for a while.
And no, I mean, it was a movie about dodgeball. Nobody thought this is it, I guarantee you nobody was thinking we'd be mentioning it 20 years later. No, we thought it was funny. I mean, you make something and you put it in front of an audience, like I was saying, you do the test screening, right? So you hear the laughs. So we knew that, like, oh, there were laughs here and it seemed fun. And then it came out, and when it came out, people went to see it, and it was such a silly idea. I remember just thinking, like, oh, this is like, I don't know. I think we all did it because we knew it's kind of ridiculous, but it just seemed like it would be really fun and funny. The original title of the movie was Underdogs, because it was really like the underdog story. And then it ended up being called Dodgeball. But no, I don't think we had any idea it would, be something that I mean, it's so crazy that people still, talk about it. And I feel like it's great. You know what I mean? I feel so lucky that there's like something there that we did that people still resonate with,
Bro, what did you do to get into that character? Like, you were
White Goodman? That was White Goodman,
how the
right?
fuck did you get into White Goodman? Like, what did you do? What did you watch?
I hit the spray tan,
Yeah.
I mean, I think I watched like, there was some like, tennis, I don't know, it was like Jimmy Conn, like celebration, like, point victory celebrations that White Goodman would have sometimes. I got deep into, and then, tried to go lift a couple weights for little White Goodman in his little singlet.
Wait, how did you, before we get to questions, how did you prepare for Zoolander, which is my favorite movie ever of yours? How did you,
thanks, man.
How'd you practice Blue Steel?
Well, Zoolander was like a long process because we did it as a short at the VH1. Back in the day, they had the VH1 Fashion Awards, and so we did it as like a short, but like behind the scenes. So like there was like a little short about a male model, a short about a photographer. Actually, Joe Rogan was the photographer. Andy Dick was like a publicist. It was like these little shorts, and then the Zoolander one was the male model, and so that was something we did again. We did it a second year. And then it took like 2 or 3 years to get the script developed. It was actually like a really long road to getting that thing made. But like the actual like character just came from Drake Sather, my friend, wrote the original sketch. And I said, what should I do? And he said, like, well, maybe just do like you're like Marilyn Monroe or something. And so it was just like ridiculous. I was just coming up with something. And the look was sort of like the look that I would like do in the mirror when, I was trying to make my hair look good. And it's like my wife would say, "Why do you do
Blue
that
Steel
look?"
right now? Can you do it? If you can you get some? Hell yeah! It's made phenomenal. All right. Let's go before we get out of here. That made the podcast.
Wait a minute. Can I say something? Can I say something before this is over?
No. We have mailbag questions for you.
Okay,
it's fine. We have time.
Okay. But I'd like to say one thing before the mailbag. Is that all right? Yeah. Raja, I sincerely feel this, and you guys, Howard, Logan, you guys are awesome. But Raj, I do feel like you have a potential career doing color commentary on NBA games. And I really think you have like such a specific style and, way with words and voice and everything. Like, I feel like you should be doing that.
I that's very high praise, sir. I appreciate that. I've never really, I've tried it one time, Ben, like, and I got a chance to do it when I was with the Bobcats and I wasn't playing, and I actually kind of enjoyed it. Like, there's a little bit of a cadence to like hopping in and hopping out, and making sure that the broadcast runs smoothly. What's honestly, if I'm being before I ever did the pod and stuff like that, and I was blessed to meet Logan and Howard. I had done a little work with TNT, going up to like NBA TV. It just, the schedule of it with my kids being as young as they were was really difficult for me. So like I had always said, as much as I could be at home and present, and I get to coach them, and just those years that I wasn't ever going to get back, I wanted to be around as much as possible. So I had to let some of that stuff let some of it go, because I just wasn't really going to commit to it the way I needed to. So who knows? But thank you, dude. That's really cool.
Well, I think
you don't know how cold you
really
are,
screwed
bro.
up. Okay.
Roger don't realize how cold he is, bro. Speaking of NBA TV, you know who I be seeing occasionally and be always asking about you?
Who's that?
The god Tara August. Always is like, what is Roger doing now? Like, is he gonna?
No, I love those folks, man. They were really good to me, bro. Those were, and not for nothing. Like, when you see those guys up there, you take for granted like actually how much goes into that, and like, at least I did, when you get there, and how much of a night that is, because they're usually shooting like once the NBA night is over and into the wee hours of the morning. So it's a pretty big deal. I had a blast. They were super cool to me, but
Well, there's this new NBC deal, right? Howard, is there like a big deal they made?
NBC and Amazon both are staffing up. So Raja,
I'm just saying.
I like my dogs though, man. You can do both though, right? You can do both.
We can do both, but don't fucking leave us. Don't you fucking leave us.
I'm just saying.
Appreciate you, man. No doubt.
Cliff, what's happening? What's going on with the question?
What's good? Let's get to this first mailbag question. Hi, my name is Anna Bennett, and I'm a junior in high school from Minnesota. I'm a huge fan of the real ones, and I listen to every podcast episode. And I'm also a huge Wolves fan. How did you guys get into writing and into the NBA world? My dream is to work in basketball, either in media or in a more front office position. And I take any tips. Also, do the Wolves have any real shot this year?
Oh, that's dope, Anna. Thanks for the question.
I guess on the Timberwolves part of it, no, sorry. I don't think so.
Sorry, Patty.
Gotta be honest. It's called the real ones. On the career side of it, could be a 3-hour presentation. I won't do that. But like, you like with anything, like you follow your passion, right? So I was a fan first. I became a journalist along the way, but it was my fandom that got me into it, that got me interested. So like, ride that passion. Like the more passionate you are about whether you want to cover the NBA or whatever it may be, like dig all the way in, watch documentaries, read stories, read your favorite writers. Especially if you want to be a writer, you gotta read the people whose work speaks to you the most, because you're going to try to not copy but emulate, different styles, different voices, different approaches to storytelling. But just learn as much as you can. And actually, one thing I wish I'd known back at the start of my career is the last piece I'll throw out to anybody listening. Like, advanced stats and breaking down the basketball aspect of it has become so much more important than it was when I first started, that if I were to start this all over, the two things I would absolutely do, I would take a bunch of stats classes, because it's actually really important to understand that stuff, not because it's the be all end all, but because understanding it at the level that people talk about it and the teams talk about it now is important. And the second part is, I came into this as kind of the generalist, right? Like, I wanted to cover the NFL. I was a huge Niners fan, right? The NBA, it just kind of, that's where my career led me. And I would have taken time along the way in college, definitely to like, there's sometimes through like the athletics department or PE departments, whatever, you can take like, here's the fundamentals of whatever. Like, even if you've played the game, you can go educate yourself on it on a different level. I think I would have done a lot more just in terms of like the educational part of it, just to prepare myself. The writing came just with reps and reading a lot, writing a lot, the reporting, interviewing techniques, all that stuff you just kind of learn by doing. But I would have, I think, dived deeper into just some of the preparation along the way. Hope that helps.
I would say, like, to add on to Howard's point about keeping the passion, that's the only thing that's going to get you through. I mean, if you don't have the passion for this, like, you're not going to get to the point that you want to get to, because there's going to be a lot of really hard nights writing. You might not get paid early on in the way that you feel like you should, and that's just the reality of the situation of the economics. You gotta really love it. Like I started in locker rooms when I was 18, and I didn't get paid at all until for like 5 years into it, and that was like freelance stuff, right?
Hmm.
And so that's just the reality of the situation. And you have to have that passion for it. And also, I think one of the things that I think I would have told myself more to do is kind of embrace what made me different in the space, because you're when you first get into writing and reporting and stuff, you kind of look at everybody around you and basically become a mock-up of like a few different people that you admire. And I think Ben can speak to this, right? Like that's how you start off when you're a creative. It's like you are just an amalgam of the things that you have seen, but then you
Absolutely.
kind of
Yeah.
find yourself, right? And you find yourself and you find out who you are. If I could have done it again, I would have tapped into what made me different even more so, because I think that would have helped out my writing and my creative part. So I think that's my advice to Anna. Anna,
Yes, Anna from
you got any
Minnesota.
advice for Anna, Ben? Like just
I
in
mean,
general,
I think you
just
guys
as a
are.
creative in general.
Yeah, I think it comes down to that one thing. You got to believe in yourself, and you got to be willing to just do it no matter what. Everybody has their own sets of challenges when you decide to go for something like that. And you're right. It's like just getting hired is so tough. But then you have to also, you have to have a voice, and you have to develop your voice. And like Howard was saying, you just have to keep on doing it. You have to keep on developing who you are and allowing. It's sort of like it's something that takes time. And if you're lucky enough to get an opportunity to do it in any way, I think you just like take whatever opportunity you have and then just keep going. But you got to do it because you love it. It's a tough time. I imagine it's a tough time to be a sports writer right now.
Absolutely, it's a tough time to be in the newspaper and journalism business in general, let alone sports.
Well, allow me then, because I think she said something about like maybe like front office or something like that. Did she say something like that too?
Yeah, she did. Yeah.
Yep.
A lot of avenues to being like a lot of avenues that are open now. Howard touched on a big one in terms of stats. Like people are making their way to front offices in that way now. That wasn't available 20 years ago. Like you had to be a basketball background person. I've met people in front offices that are purely statisticians, capologists, people that are great with numbers and math, and they can, there are so many different avenues that are not necessarily truly basketball ops that if you meet, connect, intern, and just take those opportunities, still have to be passionate like these guys said, but like there are a lot of avenues that if you're not like a true basketball getting on the court working with guys, player development type of person, or even a film room person, you could still find your way to a position in a franchise.
Let's get to the next one. This is from Dennis Stack. Next scapegoat coach firing. What up, Logan, Roger, Howard, and Cliff? First off, thanks for the wonderful, informative, and entertaining content each week. Y'all are my favorite basketball pod, and I appreciate your work. I was curious as to who each of you think is the top candidate to be scapegoat firing among NBA coaches this summer, aka who's the Frank Vogel of 2025. And follow-up question: do you see any of these potentially fired coaches or already fired in the case of Mike Brown having an immediate y'all fucked up successful season with another team a la JB Bickerstaff with the Pistons? Thanks for your time. Keep up the great work. Peace, Dennis.
That was a great question.
Don't hold back, guys.
Yeah. I mean, it might be Vogel's replacement. I mean, I don't know that he's going to, but like that, he's a candidate for it, right? Like I think it's bigger than, I mean, obviously now we've got enough sample size. That's bigger than a coach issue, right? So like, you keep replacing
it. But that's Budenholzer.
Yeah, Budenholzer. Yes.
Yeah. I would definitely, I could definitely see that happening with Budenholzer because he's a great coach. And like, what's the point? Like, I thought the Suns were going to be better. They came through the Bay like a few weeks ago, and it was just the energy just sucked, man. It was gross. Let me look. I'm looking at the. You know who else I think could be a fuck you one? Nick Nurse. Like if this all goes bad, sorry, Cliff. I mean, if this all goes bad, you know,
I'm
y'all
about to
will
say,
talk
if this
to
all
each
goes
other
bad,
later.
it already went bad.
Yeah, I can see.
No,
Nick
he's
Nurse
better than
because
that. You're right. He's better
way
than that.
better than that. What's going on right now? He could definitely find a way to a new team and say "fuck you." So yeah, that's Nick Nurse is my candidate. Who's your candidate, Howard, and then Ben?
No, Nurse was the obvious one. I hate speculating on coaches getting fired, anybody getting fired, but like that's the obvious one where if you just need to hit the reset and you're trying to like just do something to placate ownership, placate the fans, placate somebody, you throw the coach overboard because you can't do anything about the roster. And the idea of Nurse then landing somewhere else and immediately turning that team around, like not far fetched at all. We've seen Nick Nurse succeed. So yeah, he's the most obvious.
I mean, yeah, but the Sixers. I mean, there's so many other factors, don't you think?
Yes. Yeah, but that's the scapegoat part of it in the question.
Right,
I think,
Cliff?
Ben, was like they're like Vogel got scapegoated in Phoenix, got scapegoated in LA. Vogel, they should just name the scapegoat award if there were one after Frank Vogel.
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 Nick Nurse
The
is
annual
definitely a prime
Vogels.
candidate.
He got Vogeled.
He got
Okay,
Vogeled.
let's do one more, Cliff.
All right,
Get him
let's
out
do
of
one more. SGA's whistle. This is from Matthew Broussard. Does SGA get the friendliest whistle of any player this decade? It seems like he continues to draw fouls while jumping sideways into players and going into unnatural shooting motions. Even though, according to the recently modified rules, these actions should no longer draw a foul. If he doesn't have the friendliest whistle this decade, who does? Thanks, Matt B. I can think
James
of one guy
Harden
in New York.
played a decade ago. Oh,
I can think of one guy in New York.
wow. Okay. All right. Here we go. All right.
His name isn't Karl Anthony Towns.
Let's settle down.
Cliff, don't let your bitterness seep through.
Wow.
What bitterness? He's a Philly fan. All they have is bitterness. That's all they have. It's literally just to be bitter.
I'm not sure an Embiid fan should be
Right.
Well, wait, he was actually getting fouled though, and B was.
Oh,
I mean,
fuck
he's going
out of
up
here,
getting
man.
hacked.
He does a little swing through. He
going up
he
getting
literally
hacked.
jumps into players. Stop
When
it.
he's up and
Stop.
under, he's getting pushed around, and B was getting fouled.
James
And
Harden.
fouling. Let's not forget that.
He's a hack for sure. I think Mitchell
Ask
Robinson
Mitchell
can speak
Robinson.
on that. Yeah.
Fucking let's go. James Harden, obviously, he played it in the last decade. They still drawing fouls. Yeah, I would say him as a prime candidate. I was gonna say Dwayne Wade, but Dwayne Wade has played he hasn't played effectively in the last decade or so. Like his prime, he was like that. The 06 finals definitely come to mind with that. But I would say James Harden, Joel Embiid, and Jalen Brunson.
Chill.
What about Trey? Wait, what about Trey Young though? Trey Young was getting that bad.
Trey Young too.
Yeah.
But you know, for Jalen Brunson though, wouldn't you say that if that is a thing, it's only really in the last year or so, right? Because I feel like for so long he wasn't getting calls.
Yeah, I think you earn. Look, the reality is you earn your way to that, right? Like, there's a level that you get to as a scorer, as a number one like threat, as a team carrying option. That there's a level you get to where you know, just for better or for worse, you're going to get the benefit of the doubt with these officials. They're human at the end of the day, right? And so, yeah, I think Jalen earned that. He certainly wasn't getting that in Dallas or his first year in New York. Like that wasn't the case. And SGA does get that, but like and everyone's, I've seen it on socials. They're irate over it. It's like the hot topic right now. But like that happens, dude. Like we can point to that in every generation where a handful of dudes are going to get a bunch of calls and they don't make their living score. You don't score 30 some points a game in the NBA without a baked in amount of free throws. Like I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole with people again, but like you just don't.
Not this episode, at least.
Yeah, you just can't sustain the level of shooting that is required to average 30 a game unless you're a master at getting to the free throw line for whatever that means to you.
Yeah, I think I see one more question for Ben from Murdock Logan 510. He's somehow I'm not sure. Of the tough the superstar free agents that the Knicks have, like, I know this. I grew up a Lakers fan. I know, like, you know, that they have the memes where like this person's coming in free agency, this person's on the way. The KD, Kyrie's, the LeBrons, the every summer. Which of those guys that didn't come to New York broke your heart the most? That you talked yourself into that this was going to happen.
Yeah, I don't think I ever was expecting, you know, when they were talking about like KD and LeBron. I could think LeBron was the one You know, that was like, that would be incredible.
Were you in on the recruiting at all? Did you see?
Were you in that pitch video, that awful pitch video that Bloomberg was in?
I don't think so. I did do.
Like when he played it.
Did one recruiting video. I honestly, I don't remember who it was for. I'm being totally serious. That like 7 or 8 years ago, they asked me to do a thing, but it was. I think it might have been. Maybe it was LeBron. I don't know. Anyway, I mean, I don't think Knicks fans' mentality was always like it's never really going to happen. But for a second, it was like, oh, if LeBron came to New York, that would be insane. And I don't think that was ever very real, though, was it?
He dropped some hints during that season, that 09-10 season.
He was definitely flirting. He was overtly flirting. It was a toxic thing going on.
He was like wearing a Yankees hat at a baseball game in Cleveland, I think. Like he was doing some stuff that certainly I think led Knicks fans on. So
yeah. I mean, that whole Brooklyn, KD era was just like what a frustrating thing for Nets fans. I mean, right? That was just what a mess.
Yeah, that was tough.
That was
I would have maybe like Steve. I hope you're not listening because I would have really enjoyed kicking it with you for 3 years. But maybe one of the best professional calls I ever made.
Good job, buddy. Good job, buddy. He was supposed to be on the staff for the Nets. He was supposed to be. And picked real ones instead. It was great.
Yeah.
It was great.
By the way, Steve Nash is a great tennis player. Did you know that too? Like I played in a Dirk Nowitzki tennis tournament, and he won it. He was like, and he just took up tennis like 3 years before or something like that.
Yeah, he's like, well, he comes down here when he's down here. Like, I'll be like, yo, man, are we going to like get a drink or something? He's like, I just got done, hitting with Coco. So like he hits with like Coco golf, like competitively.
He's serious. Yeah.
Weird, not weird, but just like blessed. What you take him to play golf and you're like, yo, you hadn't played golf in 4 years and he might shoot like a 92 or like an 88. He's just,
right, natural.
Good at stuff like that. Yeah.
Isn't he one of the most underrated athletes in NBA history? Because like he's like a great athlete, like multi-sports, but I don't think like he gets the credit of being like the athlete that he is.
Yeah, because he's not like, well, I mean, watch him play soccer, and I don't mean this to be like a geek out on it, but watch him play soccer. He plays with world-class soccer players, and he looks like he's fine. Like it doesn't look crazy for him to be out there. I think because he's not like above the rim type of dude that people kind of get. You know, there are different kinds of athletes. You don't have to be like the most powerful, high jumping, fastest running person to be the most athletic person, right? Like, because there's hand-eye, there's timing, there's all kind of stuff that goes into being a great athlete, and he checks a lot of the boxes, and he's a lot bigger and stronger than you generally think too.
Yeah.
Oh man, another guy that could have been a great Knick. Sorry, Ben.
Definitely.
All right, man. This has been a treat, obviously, and I'm dead serious when I say this. If you have a part in anything that you got going on for, three schmucks that do a podcast, I know three schmucks that do a podcast, that you can write in. I'm just saying.
Three schmucks in a podcast. Let's get it cracking. Let's go.
If you have like a Severance opening, one of them weird ass fucking goat scenes, and you need a podcasters to like fucking announce it. I don't know. I'm spitballing here. Who knows? We're right here.
It. I love it. And Cliff, you're included too. Okay.
Let's go. Let's go. I need my first big role, man. Big role.
I just hear, hey, this would be my dream job, right? And Howard, this is going to tie. I mean, Ben, this is going to tie into what you were saying. If there's ever a dodgeball remake, I would gladly do play-by-play with Jason Bateman. I'm just letting you know.
The Ocho.
Because he's like one of my other favorites. So like that would be,
all right.
If I did that, I'd not even question.
You're definitely on for that. Definitely on.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh,
but yeah. I want to hear you in the real NBA game. So that's still my focus,
man. Hey, Ben. No, go ahead.
No. I was just gonna say also. This is my last time. Hopefully maybe someday again I'll come on. But like this is my only chance. Logan, the other thing about you is how do you have this crazy encyclopedic knowledge of like NBA, like games and history? Because you really do. You go, yeah, well, like 1986, that the third, round and whatever, everything.
First
do you
of all,
study it?
You. Well, I think I get it from my mom, man. She was one of the people that, like, when I was Rogers met my mom, Howard's met my mom. She's literally the same, like, literally
one of the coolest people.
Yeah, but like she when I was growing up would just be like, oh yeah, I've been a Lakers fan since Kareem was got traded in 1975, right? Like we'll say stuff like that. So it's kind of ingrained in me to have these things, and also like I'm a fucking basketball geek. I love this stuff, man. I used to watch like all the documentaries, every single thing. Like the reason why I became a Laker fan, and the reason, and I told Howard this, the reason why I became a Howard motherfucking Beck fan is because I got a VHS at 6 years old for the 2000 title run, and I just got obsessed with everything Lakers. And then I saw Howard with the Nirvana haircut and the grunge outfits and all the documentaries, and I would just watch them. But like, I literally, it was an.
I got to see those. I haven't seen that.
I'll send you the. I'll send you the clips.
Anything,
but like, I would just be immersed in it, and honestly, like, it just, it kind of just saved my life, man. Like, I just love this thing, and like, I get recalls through basketball dates in general for everything, right? And so yeah, it's just something that I'm just like really obsessed with.
Well, that kind of goes back to that question, that other earlier question about just like you have this love of it. It's just so ingrained in you, but then you also have, makes you put in the work of like learning all this stuff and knowing all this stuff, which is so important to what you do, what you write about.
Yeah, I appreciate you. I appreciate that, man. Thank you, bro.
Yeah, just wanted to say it anyway. And Howard, I feel like we've known each other now for a while. Kind of.
Yeah.
A furious DMing relationship for a long time there before we finally met.
What the fuck is going on with my Knicks, Howard? What the fuck?
I always want you to like the Knicks more, Howard. I can't get you to like the Knicks more.
Knicks fans are a tough audience, man.
Yeah.
It's the 9 years I covered them. I mean, listen, in my defense, I covered them during like the most dysfunctional period of like their existence. So, and I wrote
also,
some nice stories along the way. There was some really good...
with Ben not even like being a Knicks fan at that time. Right? He was not even there. He didn't come back till the dysfunction ceased. A little bit. A little bit.
Took a while, but no, Ben, this is awesome, man. I'm so glad you were able to spend some time with us.
Don't be a stranger, bro. Don't be a stranger.
You guys are great. Thanks, man. I'm enjoying being in this moment right now and just being here, part of the podcast. And I appreciate it.
Also, real quick, and I'm going to do this. I'm going to put me, Raja, and Howard, all four of us on a group chat. And because Raja doesn't believe, he didn't believe that you were a fan of this pod. I don't even think he believes right now, because he literally would be like, shut the fuck up, he's not coming on the pod. Shut the fuck up, he's not coming on the pod. And I'd be like, Roger, he's coming on, bro. We got to figure out a date. He's a fucking A-list star, but like, we're fucking coming on the pod.
No,
the fuck?
Dude, Ben, this guy he's absolutely right. And I'm not so sure that I'm not dreaming right now, but like something happened on the old X where like I had something and it was like, I don't know if you liked it or something. And I was like, no fucking way. Not even. No.
That was me.
That was me. Jesus, man. Yeah, this was super cool, man. Like I just huge fan, obviously, and
same
so
here.
Kind to do it, man. Thank you.
You guys are awesome. Keep doing your thing.
Yeah, you definitely earned friend of the show, family of the show, and you're Ben motherfucking Stiller. So we can't wait to see you next time when you're on the pod. We will be the group chat about to be popping. Talk to you guys soon. We'll see you guys Friday. Thank you to Cliff. Thank you to Ben. Thank you to Victoria. Thank you to Keith. Thanks to all the homies, man, all the affiliates. We will see you guys soon. All the shits. Bye.